Matthew 12, verses 1 through 8. At that time, and this is the reading out of the King Jimmy version, and which is hysterical given the fact that corn didn't exist in those days the way we think of it. Way different grain. At that time, Jesus went through on the Sabbath day through the corn, and his disciples were an hungered. King Jimmy has an interesting way of stating things. They were an hungered, which means they were hungry. And they began to pluck the ears of corn, no, heads of grain, and eat. But when the Pharisees saw it, they said unto him, Behold, thy disciples do that which is not lawful to do upon the Sabbath day. But he said unto them, Have ye not read what David did when he was an hungered, and they that were with him? How he entered into the house of God, and did eat the shewbread, which was not lawful for him to eat, neither for them which were with him, but only for the priests. Or have ye not read the law, how that on the Sabbath days the priests in the temple profane the Sabbath, and are blameless? But I say unto you that in this place is one greater than the temple. But if ye had known what this meaneth, I will have mercy and not sacrifice, ye would not have condemned the guiltless. For the Son of Man is Lord even of the Sabbath day. There is a sequence of interactions that are going to come in Matthew chapter 12, because Matthew chapter 12 is the hinge chapter of the entire gospel. Before it, Jesus spoke plainly, before Matthew 12. And after they blaspheme the Holy Spirit at the end of Matthew 12, Jesus disinherits the entire nation and begins to speak in parables. He who has ears to hear, let him hear, is something that we will hear refrained and repeated throughout his parabolic ministry, the ministry in which he speaks specifically in parables. That will start in Matthew 13. We're ending one segment in the Gospel of Matthew, moving on to another one. Now here's the kicker. Jesus did not directly answer the question that they had, because he knew for the Pharisees what they were arguing about wasn't really what they were arguing about. Their motive was to entrap him. They had a different desire. We've had this theme of desire pop up repeatedly in Matthew. It's about the internal barometer, the interior castle. What's going on the inside. So as a result of the fact that the Pharisees had an ulterior motive, Jesus gave a response that shot their ulterior motive to bits. He's saying, guys, hypocrites, which is typical Jesus toward the Pharisees, because they were engaging in hypocrisy. David did this. He entered in, ate the shewbread. He had the grace to do so. He was taking care of the priests. Saul had murdered 87 priests. David was taking care of the priests, therefore there was a grace for David to eat that which was lawful for the priest to offer. It was a gift from God, because David was taking care of these people who were being ravaged and destroyed by this murderous, bloodthirsty tyrant named Saul, who had turned murderous and bloodthirsty and tyrannical, which is rare for a servant to do. Servants don't normally turn ravenous and bloodthirsty and tyrannical. So, David had the grace of God because he was taking care of those people that God wanted taken care of. Therefore, God let slide the fact that David went in and had the shewbread, the bread of presence. And it says also, Have you not read in the law how on the Sabbath days the priests in the temple profane the Sabbath and are blameless? In other words, nobody is flawless in God's presence. The priests serve as representatives, and even though they serve as representatives, they're still flawed. They still have issues, but God accepts them on the basis of the fact that it's necessary to perform so that a greater purpose could have been executed, namely the atonement of sins on Yom Kippur. So there was a greater purpose. With David, a greater purpose, a greater desire, a greater internal thing. They were hungry, so the grace was extended, and they were doing the work of God for God himself, because God was walking with them. Right? And then he talks about the Son of Man is Lord even of the Sabbath. So he was establishing the fact of, later on in another gospel, Luke and Mark, he says, the Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath. In other words, the Sabbath was made to serve man, to serve the purpose of giving man rest and refreshment, not a day to put man on lockdown with a bunch of rules and regulations to follow. There's so many people that treat the Sabbath as a rule and a regulation, and they end up not resting on it, whether it's Sunday or Saturday or pick your day. As a result, their day of rest is no more a day of rest than any other day. They're not truly refreshed because they're treating it as a day of work. It was not designed to be that way. It was designed for them to rest. So, anything to add, my dear? Even if it's different from what I had said.
No, not today.
Okay. So, get the rest that Father intends for you to have. If you end up taking care of those people that Father needs taken care of because they're doing his job and they're innocent, Father will extend grace to you. And as you're engaged in doing the work of God, if you're hungry, then eat. Real simple, real basic. No need to over-spiritualize or super-spiritualize what you do with some legalistic rules and regulations. Gang, be blessed, and we love you guys.